Welcome back to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. Time now to turn to Cory Klippsten. He is the founder of GiveBitcoin. Cory, nice to see you.
Good to see you, Max.
You know, I caught up with you here at Crypto Springs in Palm Springs, California. You told me about GiveBitcoin. I had been hearing about it, and the second I heard about it, I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. This is what's needed. And so now finally get to meet you, talk about it. What is GiveBitcoin?
Yeah, so we basically set out to figure out the best way to onboard new people into Bitcoin, what we like to call newcoiners, and to do it sort of with the highest chance of success, and so that you as the person who's trying to bring them into Bitcoin can do that safely and with the knowledge that they're going to have their hand held by someone that cares about their education and in Bitcoin and has a good chance of turning them into a real Bitcoiner.
Right, so there's this Timelock feature.
Yeah.
Which kind of prevents people from making a lot of the mistakes that are made. You know, there are people in Bitcoin who got in 2010, 2011, 2012. They own thousands and thousands of Bitcoin, and they lost a lot of them. I myself have lost thousands of Bitcoin over the year. But with your service, this is addressed, right?
Yeah, that's right. We like to say give plus Timelock plus educate equals Bitcoiner. And so the way it actually works is if there's someone that you want to sort of indoctrinate into Bitcoin, you can give them a little bit of Bitcoin, and then you decide how long it's time locked for, minimum 1 year, maximum 5 years. And then in that first year, we give, a world-class education that we're shaping with people like Safety and Amoose and Stefan Livera and Matt Odell from Tales from the Crypt, and hopefully you'll sit for an interview with us and be part of one of the chapters. And so basically each month over those 12 months, and obviously people that get excited can read ahead and start buying Bitcoin on their own. But we know for sure that Bitcoin is sitting there in their account, it's theirs, and they're going to have a really good shot at understanding what Bitcoin is about and not make mistakes with it.
Right, so this comes from personal experience, from what I gather. So what's the story?
Yeah. I mean, it's a combination of a couple things. I was given some Bitcoin by a friend in January of 2014, and I was super busy working on a non-Bitcoin startup at the time, and it just didn't take. And I lost it. And then later, when I got super enthusiastic about Bitcoin starting in early 2017 and spent the next 2.5 years getting into it, I was also trying to drag my parents into it, and I spent about 18 months trying to get my dad to buy Bitcoin. He finally bought some in March of this year, and I was thinking about it, and I thought, man, it would have been nice if I could have just given him some, but I didn't want him to trade it for altcoins, and I didn't want him to lose it. So how can I solve that?
Yeah, I mean, I offered to give Alex Jones 10,000 Bitcoin when it was under $5 as a way to give to his audience as an education.
Yeah.
And then he turned it down because he felt it was some kind of nefarious plot of the government. So that was sad for his listeners. But this would have made that process actually work if it were in place. And the advisors that you mentioned sound great. I mean, this is a really good list of folks. Safety and Amoose, of course, wrote the Bitcoin Standard. And so what do they have in common, this group of advisors?
Well, and we should also mention our host here at Crypto Springs, Meltem Demirors, was one of the first ones to come on board and start helping out, making connections and shaping the product. I think it's important to make this feel like, we think of it like a scaled evangelism platform. And I think what that means is you need to make sure that it's sort of like of the community, by the community.
As a service. That seems to be the theme of today's show.
You're right. Yeah, exactly.
So you take that evangelism, and people are very good at articulating, you got to get into Bitcoin, like Andreas Antonopoulos, for example, and he's got thousands of people into Bitcoin. But it's actually kind of a rocky road to get into it because it's still a nascent technology, etc. So the business itself, tell me a little bit about that. Because it is a business, it's a for-profit business.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right. So how does that work for you guys, and how do you scale it? What are you looking to do?
Yeah, I mean, really, we're just taking transaction fees on the way in, and so we, as I'm sure is right in line with the way you think about things, we don't let people give their own Bitcoins. We want everybody to hold their Bitcoins, hodl them, so you can only liquidate dirty fiat for a beautiful orange coin and put that in your friend's account. Another really important aspect of the business, and we suspect this will be a big use case, is you can actually sign up to get Bitcoin. So if you want to sort of go fund yourself for your birthday or a wedding or Christmas or whatever, you can sign up and then tell your friends that you want to get Bitcoin for presents.
That's a cool marketing line. Go fund yourself.
Yeah.
Also for, I would imagine, baby showers. You've got a baby coming along, and 18 years, you got that big expense. Everyone's freaking out about it. you can set this up, and hopefully some of that funding will be offset by Bitcoin, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, we're really excited to have the Bitcoin Rabbi involved because we think we'll do a lot with bar and bat mitzvahs. We love that 5-year window between turning 13 and then being an adult at 18 and having a bunch of Bitcoin waiting for you.
I say this often, that you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you.
Absolutely.
And so what does that mean to you?
Well, a rallying cry for us, and a phrase we use a lot, is basically the gift of Bitcoin, giving the gift of Bitcoin, not just Bitcoins. And we're actually in early process of writing a book called The Gift of Bitcoin, which is going to be a collection of stories from people around the world about how Bitcoin actually changed them for the better, or made them think about things in more of a low time preference way and improved their lives.
You know, I've been thinking about different things, like the way that the foundation in Bangladesh, I forget the name exactly, but they made micropayments available for women, and it really transformed that.
Probably Grameen Bank.
Grameen Bank, thank you. And this was using finance and capitalism in a new, innovative way, and to make these micro loans. And there's also a site called Kiva, I think the name is, where people are giving small amounts to small producers in different regions of the world. And so, you know, money and capitalism is being transformed before our eyes. In the case of Grameen, interestingly enough, they kind of ran up against the establishment. The big banks came in and they started to raise the rates, and it became more predatory. And so with Bitcoin, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, because it seems that we're at a stage now where it's doing battle with the big guys. You got now futures contracts, you've got derivatives. There's some concern that the price will be manipulated, as we've seen in the precious metals. You know, after years of reporting that J.P. Morgan manipulates the price of gold and silver, and having them deny it, having regulators deny, even though the irrefutable proof was put right in front of their noses, it finally came out that it's fact. They have been manipulating the markets, and we know why they manipulate those markets. So in the case of Bitcoin, where are we on that curve? Are we just entering now a bigger battlefield? Are we prepared for that battlefield? What do you think about that?
Well, you know, I'm a finance MBA from University of Chicago who's been in startups, and when I decided last August to spend my career going forward on Bitcoin, the first thing that I thought about was, how do you get institutions involved? And I spent last fall trying to work on getting a closed-end fund listed before the ETFs could get in, and I basically was just completely uninspired by that. And I think the reason why is because I just didn't think that that would move the dial nearly as much as getting millions of individual humans involved.
Right,
just getting 1% of some portfolio that somebody manages for somebody else, like they're not invested, they have no soul in the game there, right?
So our friend over at Morgan Creek Capital and Pomp, who we know very well, they have that message of get off 1%, or, to just get the institutions just begin that path, and that's what they've taken as their way to move the ball forward. You're saying you looked at that and decided, maybe instead of getting one billionaire to own a couple of Bitcoin, I'm going to get 1 billion people to own a fraction of a Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, I think they in particular are actually more aligned than you would think, just because their network has always been a lot of family offices, so they're not usually going to try to get Blackstone into Bitcoin. It's much more likely that it's going to be on a roadshow with a lot of family offices. So it's kind of just like the high end of what I'm talking about. And obviously Pomp spends a lot of time talking to hundreds of thousands of people with his podcast and things like that.
Right,
so,
and he's brilliant on CNBC.
Right, exactly.
And talting the language of CNBC. I mean, I don't mean to digress into talking about a completely separate company and a completely separate initiative, but with you guys, it's just that you're part of this ecosystem.
We're stronger. Bitcoin is just stronger, but based on absolute numbers of people that care about Bitcoin. It's more decentralized, it's more powerful, and there are fewer choke points, and there's fewer opportunity for regulatory interference or government action or whatever the case may be. We just we want more miners and more full nodes and more people doing self-sovereignty, and we want more people owning Bitcoin however we can get them to own Bitcoin.
Okay, so a service like this, or an institutional service, they do share a common need for custodial services.
That's
right? So I'm here at Crypto Springs, and in the opening statements by Meltem Demirors, she was talking about kind of a loss of innocence in the industry, moving away from the cypherpunk era to what she called the eternal September, an era of kind of turning this whole thing into a plain vanilla, commoditized, boring instrument, if I can summarize in that way. what do you think about this idea where having Bitcoin custodial services is not necessarily a great match with that cypherpunk thought process? You know, cypherpunk being like, everyone needs to, we're going to burn everything down, and we're going to encrypt everything, and everyone can go to hell. You know, custodial services are like, we want to be part of the big club. So how do you reconcile?
Well, I think it's symbiotic. I think Bitcoin is way more powerful when there are enough people that are doing the totally private, self-sovereign, totally fine with picking up stakes and moving to another jurisdiction and fighting this fight till the bitter end. But obviously, number goes up when a lot of people, even if it's custodial at Coinbase or wherever, Kraken, you know, and is holding on to their Bitcoin.
Number goes up, price goes up. It is, as someone once described, Bitcoin a movement toward universal acceptance of hard money and peace disguised as a get-rich scheme.
Yes. Yeah, it is.
So that rising price. So we've been trained for decades now to look at rising price equals good. Like in the case of a WeWork IPO, even though it's complete garbage, the fact that the price went up for 3 years on the venture capital markets mean it's good.
Yeah.
So that's our mindset. That's our lizard brain.
That's right.
So Bitcoin hacks that lizard brain.
Oh yeah.
And says, keep looking at the price going up. But by the way, we're going to turn you into a self-sovereign individual who's doing battle with the centralized, nefarious warmongers. Yeah. Am I just putting words into your mouth?
They're your words, but I agree with them. And I think Bitcoin recruits and creates passionate individuals, you know, as effectively as anything that I've ever seen.
All right, got to cut her up there.
There you go.
I know. Thank you, Cory Klippsten. The company is GiveBitcoin. Thanks for being on the Keiser Report.
Great to see you, Max.
Cool. That's going to do it for this edition of the Keiser Report with me, Max Keiser, and Stacey Herbert. I'd like to thank our guest, one and only Cory Klippsten of GiveBitcoin. If you want to reach us on Twitter, it's Keiser Report or KeiserReport.com. Until next time, bye, y'all.